All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It's a beautiful weather outside there, right? So it's not cold anymore, so we can have a quick break from the freezing cold. My name is Marian Dank. I'm venture manager at Innovate Calgary, and I'm going to host this event today together with my colleague Chantal. So before we start, I would love to do the land acknowledgement. In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, we honor and acknowledge Mohkinstsis and the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kaurna First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Perspo, and the Goodstoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. How many of you heard about Innovate Calgary before? All right, quite a few people, but I'm going to do just a very quick intro. So Innovate Calgary is innovation and business incubator of the University of Calgary. We do everything from ideation to commercialization. And we have 3 physical locations. So one of them is Life Sciences Innovation Hub, and you can tell that everything covers social innovation stuff. So it's actually not far from here. We have also Energy Transition Center, which is in downtown, deals with energy transition. And we have Social Innovation Hub, and today we are at Social Innovation Hub. We have co-working space, we have also labs, we have prototyping lab, we have wet lab, so the companies, startups, members that are at the hub, they can have access to it. We also have equipment, as I mentioned, we have funding, dilutive and non-dilutive. Dilutive means we give you money, we take an equity, so that comes to UCIT portfolios, and we have non-dilutive funding in terms of different grants that we also operate. For example, if you are a life sciences startup, we have life sciences fellowship program where we give 200,000 and you stay with us for 2 years. We also have ISG, which is Innovation Catalyst Grant. It's 250,000 actually. And we have something like Elevate IP. That's something very interesting. So you as the startup, you can apply and also get grants to support your IP journey. Programming, as I mentioned, Life Sciences Fellowship, Innovation Catalyst Grant, E2I, Elevate to Innovate, and we also have our 2SI, which is Research to Social Innovation, which is a part of the Social Innovation Hub. And we have the advice. The program that we run is called Expert Advisor. You have a number of hours that you can be paired with the expert advisor and receive that support that's crucial for your growth. And we have the community. And Founders Lunch is the part of the community. So we bring people together for networking, knowledge exchange, building up your knowledge towards building your business. We have Tech Tuesday, which is happening at Energy Transition Center, and we have as well Social Innovator Breakfast Club, which is happening here. And I want to pass the microphone to Chantal, who will give you a little bit more introduction of the Social Innovation Hub.
Thanks, Marian, and welcome everyone. It's good to see so many new faces and familiar faces here in the Social Innovation Hub. I'm the community manager here, and I'm just curious, how many of you is this your first time in the Social Innovation Hub? Okay, so like more than half of you, that's great. Of those that this is your first time coming here, how many of you this is your first time hearing about us? You've never heard about us? Okay, so just a couple. At least people know who we are. So I'm glad that you are finally here in our presence. Yes, that's great. So yeah, we're excited to welcome you into the Social Innovation Hub. We're a fairly new space, and we're here to support businesses that are socially purposed to launch and grow. And we do that through a variety of ways. You get assigned with a coach, and that coach is kind of your conduit into the ecosystem. So you can learn about things happening in Innovate Calgary, which there are a lot of, but also outside in the ecosystem, you know, things that maybe other incubators are doing that you can participate in. And also just to be that person that walks alongside you on your innovation journey. We also have our co-working space, which you're in, or creative studio services, which Vince runs over there. So he's our creative like guru. He can help you with like, your storytelling. He can help you with your branding, your marketing, and just thinking about what your company does and how we can resonate with your audiences. And we offer discounts on services that innovators typically would need. So AWS, HubSpots, and things like that. Also, you get paired with expert advisors, as Marianne mentioned. But all of that is really to support social innovators or organizations that are socially purposed. If you're not sure if you're a social innovator, still come talk to us. We think every business has some kind of social purpose. So if you're not sure if yours does and you would like it to be, please let us know. And here at the Social Innovation Hub, we're really committed to creating programs that are responsive to the needs of our community. So after listening to some of our founders, the topic for today, Sales 101, came into question. A lot of folks are looking for ways that they can find customers. And when they find them, how do you get them to use your product? So we're really focused on getting you the right resources that you need at the right time. And because of that, we're on this learning journey that I would like to invite you all to participate in. In the kitchen, you might have noticed, or if you didn't, please check it out when we are done with our presentation. There's a learning lab, and on there it asks questions like, what are some things that are challenging you now as a founder? What kind of resources do you think are missing in the ecosystem? Feel free to partake. You can tick off what resonates with you, or if nothing there seems to answer a question that you have as a founder right now, use the sticky notes and just put it up there. We'll definitely we'll look at the results and we'll plan our programming accordingly. So thank you for those for participating. I saw a few there already. And if you haven't yet, please do so before you leave. Finally, just some housekeeping. Since this is the first time that a lot of you have been here, welcome. If you need the washroom, it is right by the mural with the eagle. You can just turn right, and they're all there. They are gender neutral, so you can use any of them. When you're using your dishes, feel free to put them in the sink when you're done. And please use the garbage cans. There are many of them in the kitchen. I would appreciate that. Thank you again for coming. I am going to pass it over back to Marianne, but if you're interested in the Social Innovation Hub, please reach out to me. I'll be here, and I have some cards scattered all over the place. So I hope to get to chat with each of you before you head out. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chantal. Thank you for the Social Innovation Hub team for arranging this beautiful place for us today. Founders Lunch, this is the place to connect, to learn, to grow together. The one thing that I want you to remember, it's happening every last Thursday of the month. We used to do it at Life Sciences Innovation Hub, but now we rotate. So every month it will be a different location, one of those 3 hubs. So next time if you want to go, make sure you check the address. It can be either at ETC or... you can find it on the Eventbrite. You can find it also on the innovatecalgary.com website. All right. So, and this session, sales, because the topic is actually quite big, right? And, if you don't make sales, the company is not going to survive. That's why definitely 1 hour is not enough to cover. So we split them into 3 different parts. And today we'll be focusing on mastering the fundamentals of selling. So if you want to keep learning more about sales, please take a picture or just be aware that there will be 2 more sessions happening at Social Innovation Hub. One in March, one in April. Just stay tuned for the announcement of those events. And the topic will be covering building sales systems. And the last one will be about the enterprise sales and hiring actually sales talent. All right, without further ado, I would love to introduce today's panel. We have Evan, who is the strategic advisor at Fasken. Fasken, this is the Calgary law firm. And also Evan is the host of the podcast, which is called The Hard Part. And he interviews the most interesting Canadian. If you want to learn more about people who are running businesses, who are building the companies, please tune in and listen to those episodes. Then we also have Kelsey. Kelsey is the CEO and co-founder of Monarch, and Kelsey is disrupting the leadership training space. And we have David, the last but not the least, founder and CEO at E-commerce Canada. And he is focused on creating profitable e-commerce businesses here in Canada. So we have, I think Evan also ran company before himself. So we have founders, and we have right now in his role, he's actually helping founders. So it's a great lineup to tackle different angles of sales fundamentals. So without further ado, I would love to give you time, just quickly introduce yourself. What are you doing? How did you end up what you're doing, and why? Evan, let's start with you. Yeah, we need to switch it though. Here we go. Thank you.
Check. Perfect. Yeah, as Marion said, I work with Fasken's Emerging Tech Practice Group. So we work with founders, we work with VCs. I am not a lawyer, so please don't ask me any legal questions. But I look to help our founders connect with investors, clients of their own, and just generally support them outside of legal. My background, I've been at Benevity. I was one of the first 30 people at Neo Financial launching their sales partnerships team. Host a podcast, as Marion said. Co-founded an e-commerce business called Better Beans, focused on coffee. And I've worked with a lot of interesting companies in town, so hopefully you'll leave today with some good sales advice.
Thank you, Evan. My name's David. I'm the founder of E-commerce Canada. Currently, I have a bit of a background of kicking the can down the road in digital in Calgary. So founded a bunch of businesses, mostly in the e-commerce space, online retail, helping people buy stuff on the internet. So I gained a bit of a proficiency and some systems to do so, and have been sharing that with other entrepreneurs. So today at E-commerce Canada, we advise other people and consult and connect them with, funding programs and things that are going to help their companies become more successful and make a few bucks online.
I don't have multiple companies like these guys. So Monarch is my first and only startup and company. But I, just have a deep passion and love for what we're building and what we're doing. Both my co-founder and I are trained as organizational psychologists, and so, really understood our space before we launched into building a product. And very much we're kind of already working in this space and had a deep understanding, which kind of led us to want to build the tech. And I also don't have a background in sales, but I now have come to love sales. So I do love talking about sales.
Awesome. So I think the best way to connect to the audience, right? Because some of you also either thinking about to start a business or running a company, right? And then definitely questions about sales come to your head every day, right? Because again, without sales, the company is not going to grow. So let's talk a little bit about what are the common questions that usually people have when it comes to sales. What kept you alive or awake at night, right, when you were starting out with sales? Kelsey, let's start with you, probably.
Okay, well, I think the way that the question was worded too was some of the challenges or mistakes that people make. By the way, I have my phone which has notes that I've made because I am very forgetful. But a couple things, I think, so we are a B2B SaaS product, and understanding our space, it took me a while to appreciate this, but we could effectively sell anything to anyone from day one. There is no regulatory hurdles for us to cross, no sorts of approvals that we needed. If we had something that we thought we could sell to people, we were going to do it. I think that a lot of founders have this view that your product needs to be perfect, that it needs to be ready, that it's not ready yet. And you have to kind of get over that fear and recognize that the first products we pushed out the door, first product was not great. It's heavily evolved since then. But that, getting people to even pay for that really proves that you're onto something. A couple other big ones, I'll just mention two of the other ones that I think a lot about are hiring salespeople way too early. You will see, 30-person teams at a seed stage. And so that would probably be, around $1 million ARR in sales. And you have a 30-person team, 5 business development representatives. That is too many. As a founder, and for us, we just hired our first head of growth, who's here in the audience today. And so that was 3 years into our journey. So I heavily believe in founder-led sales. And if you are a founder and you can't sell your product, you are not going to be able to hire someone who will sell your product. So you got to figure out how to sell it. And then the last one kind of related to that is just thinking your product is so amazing, your tech is so wonderful that people are just going to flock to it. Evan, I'm sure you've seen that one, David, but people, start out with I'm building this, it hasn't been done before. Very rarely, unless you're, Uber or Facebook or something totally novel, there are you can talk to really successful tech companies in town. You got to work for those sales. You got to pound the pavement and figure out how to get to the right customer in the right channels. no one's just going to like knock on your door and want to just buy your tech. So that was a tech perspective.
So true. So true. Yeah, a lot of good points there, Kelsey. Questions. Yeah, right along that stream of consciousness, I think, why aren't people buying my thing? That's the number one question. I've got all this stuff, and I've got the greatest product that anybody's ever seen. Where's the demand, and why isn't it converting? In my experience, it's, clarity is the first thing that comes to mind. What do you have? Who do you provide it for? And what's particularly unique or interesting about your trinket, right? Your product or your service. And just a lack of clarity and definition about what you do and who it was curated for and why it should be interesting to me. We're just creatures of looking for entertainment value more than anything in the world, right? And if I can't draw a line of sight to that, or if it's confusing or cloudy, or if you're trying to do 15 different things, you got 32 words on the FMA and the homepage of your website. I don't have the attention span to keep up with that, especially early in an engagement, right? If you don't, new customer acquisition is all about clarity and solving a particular point of pain or a need very, very quickly. If you can't define that quickly for me and show me words that are going to be relevant to me or speak to me in a way that's really going to affect me, then, I'm not likely to buy into the product anytime soon. You probably won't get the second meeting, let's put it that way.
Common problem I see, number one, would be like inaction. So it's kind of similar to what Kelsey was talking about. But for an example, I won't name the client, but we have a client right now, and they're trying to sell their product. It's a B2B product. And I'll meet with them like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. And a common thing is like, I'm like, who did you reach out to in the last 2-3 weeks? And they'll say like 2 people, right? Like, I think that's a huge thing, is like, you need to be out there talking to people, creeping them on LinkedIn, DMing them on LinkedIn, reaching out by email, having the conversations. Because if you're having one sales conversation a month, one a week, that's just not enough. You don't know what's working. You really got to optimize for like getting out there and having a ton of conversations. Some of them are going to fall apart and not work, but you need to do that to get out there and actually talk to people. Similar to what Kelsey said too, I think I've seen this problem at Neo and also where I worked at Headversity, is just the founders just kind of get tired of selling and they want to pass it off to the experts. So they bring in a VP from X big company. Oh, they're going to sell the shit out of my product. And it just doesn't work that way. The founder really needs to sell the first 500K, first million of revenue, I would say at the very least, needs to build the processes. And then you can actually just go find someone who's, I wouldn't say junior, but you don't need to go find the rock star. You just need to find someone that can execute on the process that you've built, and you've done it numerous times. So someone who's just, let's say, just driven, motivated, has like the good underlying skills, can just do it. You don't need to go hire that VP.
Awesome. I think we kind of outlined the big picture, right? The challenges, the mistakes, so areas that we need to focus. So let's dive deep into actually what is ICP, right? The ideal customer profile and persona creation. Probably, Evan, let's start with you. So what to pay attention, what are the challenges over there, why it's important to do from scratch, and if you can provide as well a concrete example from your industry or maybe some of the startups that you work with before.
Yeah, I think anyone who's in the room or has like a business idea, you have like a rough idea of what your ideal customer profile is. I would say, again, it's similar to that inaction piece, right? You're going to have your initial assumptions of like what you're selling into, what area you're going to sell into. But I think you got to try a few different verticals just to like initially test things, right? And you got to go somewhat deep into them. You can't just reach out to one person in oil and gas, one person in construction, one person at universities. You got to talk to a decent amount of people again, you got to use your judgment, your product, but there's probably gonna be a few areas where it's at least relevant from like an early idea stage. And you really got to get out there, have those conversations. Again, you're just like really finding the real pain point, and you're going to really you're going to laser focus in on the ICP and figure that out. I think once you've figured out your ideal customer profile, that's when you kind of get into the persona part of things. So personas are like those individuals at different companies. It doesn't have to be specifically title related. What we did at Benevity is we actually gave people names. So it'd be like Finance Fred or whatever that may be, and you give that person like a whole fictional story. So they might have 2 kids, they might be this age, maybe they went to this type of university. You're really painting a whole picture of what they're doing day to day in the work, but maybe also like where they're hanging out outside of work. So that can help with a marketing and sales approach of like, where are these people living? And I think you want to have like 2, maybe 3 personas at least early, with your kind of maybe 1 to 3, 1 to 4 ICPs. And those personas can really be helpful for just the pain points, right? You're going to talk about your product slightly different with each persona, whether that's, cold outreach from email, whether that's, you're holding meetups or you're at industry events. And the more time that you build with these personas and give them kind of a name, the more you can just identify someone right away. You talk to them for 10 seconds, you're like, okay, you're this person, and this is my playbook. This is my kind of 30-second pitch for this ICP and persona. So those are just some things that I've seen work in the past.
I like Finance Fred. I'm going to use that. That's excellent. And it helps, I think, from identifying your audience, right? I mean, it personifies them in a way that makes it more comfortable, and you can share that with your organization a little bit better. Like, we've got 4 personas. It's all very boring, but when you characterize them, I think it becomes a little bit more real. I'll give 2 little things that I hope add some value to this. There's a remarkable amount of data out there, just in census data. I can extract data from 400 million households in North America to understand how much money they make, what kind of vehicle they drive, what's their marital status. There's 64 million businesses that are, available to you in census data. So if you're trying to figure out if there's a population or an audience for my thing, and you're drilling into, is there viability of this thing, use the resources that you have at your disposal. There's actually quite a bit of it, and it's pretty profound once you start to dig into it a little bit. The other point that I would make is think about events. We talk about like the ideal customer or persona or target audience and stuff a lot. But most of those people aren't in a position to buy anything, right? Like, we're not sitting around going like, I think I want to buy some stuff. I'd like to buy some software. Kelsey, you got anything for me? I'm not thinking that. I have a need. And that need is usually associated with some other things. Maybe I'm going to some events because this thing is stressing me out. Or maybe I'm like googly snooping some stuff and trying to find some content that's like, it's going to solve this particular problem for me. So we're not like perched up willing to buy all the time. There's typically an event or a catalyst that's going to drive that. Your job is timing, right? To be good at sales, it's like, I need to show up then, or I need to have built awareness in advance of that particular moment in some decision maker's life, and they're going to pull the trigger on something. It's not as simple as like, let's just let Meta's AI figure this all out for me. The vast majority of who they're targeting is not interested in this moment in that thing, right? So you get a little bit smarter to pare down your audience to someone who is probably relevant to you.
This is going to sound weird based on the conversation we had coming in, but I think, so we have AI built in our product. None of my customers are asking for AI. They don't care about it. So, to your point, like, they care about solving the problem that they went out, that they need help solving. And for many consumers today, consumers or businesses, that's not going to be the thing that you think you're trying to disrupt and do, in a really unique and innovative way. You really need to come back to the problem. Just was adding that in. But for us, ideal customer profile, I mean, we're still like working on our ICP. I think there's also this view that like, you land on an ICP and it is what it is and it can never be changed. That is not true. You are constantly evolving your ICP. The companies that I thought were our ICP 2 years ago are not our ICPs today. And, for those of you working with investors or, maybe exploring seeking dilutive funding, one thing, like, I'll share that we maybe I wouldn't say like it was a misstep, but there were a lot of investors very early in our journey saying, you figure out your ICP, repeatable sales, like same customer, why do all your customers look differently? And because in the early days we had customers, and we still today have a lot of different kinds of customers, but in banking, in mortgage, in energy, in clean tech, in law, and they were, investors were like, well, these all look really different, so this is not your ICP. And that would have been horrible advice had we followed that, because by trying our tech in different environments really early days, we figured out who our ICP is not. And over time, it allows us to refine. And so push back on investors if they're telling you that. You can always talk about how we're still experimenting and growing and learning. And that's what we did. And to the point, like, we're still figuring that out today. So I think it's ever evolving.
Thank you. Yeah, before we move to the next question, David, another question for you, the follow-up. What's your ICP, and how long did it take for you to build it up?
Well, as Kelsey just pointed out, it's a moving target, right? And it usually starts with a smaller customer of some variety. Well, maybe not always, right? Sometimes you go in mass market and scaling, and then you're just looking for more. More is better. My ideal customer is somewhere between 2 and 10 million in revenue. I'm a B2B consultant by and large. The interesting thing about the work I do today, I've most of my experience is in D2C. I sell to end users and ship stuff to your household, and then we manipulate the data and we figure out when you wake up in the morning and on and on. But in a B2B setting, I'm looking for that kind of mid-market company that doesn't have the resources and decision-making horsepower to do this for themselves, right? I sell a consulting service, and I help you make money on the internet. A crappy economy works for me. I know it's kind of a downer for everybody else, but I'm like, if everybody's making money, they don't need a lot of what I provide, right? Because they're pretty satisfied. They're living well, and their businesses are growing, and they're taking care of themselves. My success is in friction. My success is when, my business is struggling. I've hit a ceiling. And I think it's really important to be aware of that again, your product will never be all things to everyone, right? You're not solving every problem. But when I have a problem, urgency drives a lot of decision making, right? So I'm usually on the hunt for businesses that are like, it's very competitive. I'm not making money. I'm not growing. Everybody said I was just going to be successful because I did everything that I was supposed to do. And that's what has helped me kind of find the right customer. Is like, where are you spending your time? How are you living your life? What other things are you associating? Are you coming to events like this? Those all could be indicators of like, I've kind of hit that ceiling or experiencing some struggle where I'd need a little bit of extra support. And I got to talk to somebody who has probably been through this before.
Perfect. And that's a perfect, actually, a transition. So once you identify who is your ICP, right? So now the time is to actually go out and be loud, right? And try to reach out and find those customers. Evan, let's start with you. So when it comes to content creation, messaging, positioning, so what is the best strategy, do's and don'ts?
I think it just ties in nicely. Like, you look at it like a process, right? You're identifying your ICP, you're identifying your personas, and then you're tying your message to those personas, right? The pain and problem that those specific personas have. So, like, an example I would use from like other companies I was at, like at Benevity, we had those kind of fictionalized personas, and then we had tailored messaging for each of those personas, right? So if it was like, let's say that Finance Fred example again, we would have a specific outreach strategy specifically for that type of persona. So that would be the emails they're getting, the call script, everything that you're doing. So I think that's really important is, again, you can't just jump to the outreach. You really got to do that kind of research on the ICP persona side, and you're going to have a direct kind of messaging for those people. I think too, like when I'm doing outreach, I call it like the lazy sales method. So I'm trying to just do automated email only outreach to a very targeted group. So I'm finding people that fit that persona at your ICP. And again, you're tailoring the message to the assumptive kind of pain point that you have. and I'm just doing cold automated emails on a sequence out to those people, and you're getting that feedback and that data that can really kind of help you out. But yeah, that's kind of like how I would take an approach from like a persona perspective and like figuring that out.
Adapt or inherit the tone of your customer. I think I was going to say we. I'll say I have had a problem, because this may not be your problem, but it was mine, of speaking in terms of things that were meaningful to me or to my co-founders. I was a founder of the largest independent outdoor gear retailer in the country some years ago. And that audience cared about wool socks and Birkenstocks, man. They loved the environment. They wanted adventure and living their lives outside. And we were like a conversion machine, you know? We did those things, and my business partner was an adventurer. So there's authenticity. We knew the nomenclature and how to speak to them. But you can get pretty trapped in the deal of the day mentality that maybe isn't that meaningful to them. So you have to kind of adjust yourself back. Like, no, what's this guy going to care about? He's wearing a fleecy. Like, what does he care about? Not what do I want to achieve today, right? Because engagement's going to come from the fact it's like, oh, that's meaningful to me. I can connect with that. People don't want to open an email that, you know, is corporate banter, right? They want to see value in every touch point and every method of communication. So with that company in particular, that's a pretty easy persona to work with, because they wear it on their sleeves, and the logos that they wear, it tells you a lot about it. But I can watch somebody walk by there and know exactly what they're thinking because of that combination of Arc'teryx and Marmot. It tells you a lot about a person. But you got to get to know that and then speak authentically to them. Like you back away pretty quickly with away from, like, you know, deals and promotions and sales and you need this and you need that and we think this. None of that matters, right? It's just what's pertinent to the person that you're trying to build interaction with.
You know, listening to Evan, I realized we didn't like set the context in a way, you know, before we started this panel, which was, you know, I have a B2B SaaS company. That means today we have about 20 clients. You know, think about that and put that into perspective. So everything is dependent on your average customer value, the length of your sales cycles, what your customers look like. And so, you know, everything that we're talking about could be tailored based on what your business actually looks like. Like I don't need to talk to 1,000 customers a year to get 20, right? I need to talk to like, now like 350. We're growing fast. High quality leads, right? But so we don't need to do like a ton of like mass marketing. We're not trying to drive like a lot of traffic. That would be totally different for a B2C company. And so I just like want to make sure that we put that out there. So it really is all dependent on your business model. You know, but related to what you were saying, you know, some of the notes I had on this one were, you cannot be everything to everyone, and I think we made that mistake early. We were like, oh, we are the leadership development platform for everyone, from C-suite down to your receptionist, and we used to say that. That was our marketing, CEO to receptionist. That's, you know, again, like talking to customers over and over and over again. We realized that's not what they want. We needed to focus, we needed to narrow, and that, you know, progressively drove our positioning. And so it's an evolution. Like but I would say the thing that really helped us get there was just talking to customers. Always just being obsessed with their point of view. Because yeah, you have an idea about your product. We were already working, my co-founder and I, in our space, and we were still learning about what the customer wanted, right? So just not assuming you understand and fully know what they're looking for. The only other thing I would say too is like some of the things we're talking about as well are, in my opinion, like $1 million in sales plus. You know, like Evan's talking about like employee 30 at Neo. I mean, they would have been like massive scaling at that point. And so thinking about some of these strategies, like they're very stage specific of where you are today. And I would say like from our first 3.5 years in our journey, our head of growth on the way over here, we were talking about redesigning our website. To date, we have spent $0 on our website. People. We have no SEO. We do very little marketing through it. Now that all has to change now, but like 3.5 years in, right? And so again, like think about who you're trying to target. My customers didn't look at my website. They were at events. I was talking to them one-on-one. We were building relationships. They never went to my website. So, focus your very limited resources in the time that you have.
Yeah, I appreciate the context, Kelsey, with like where we are coming from. I think you should take that into account. I just want to add one quick thing. I think a common problem I see from like outreach or like the messaging that I see from a lot of our clients at Fasken is it's a bit of a word salad, right? It's like we're an AI, quantum, like outreach tool or something like that. And people, when they're talking about their business, are talking about what their business is, but not what the problem they're solving. So I think that's just a very small tweak that you can do right away, is people just kind of, again, they kind of that word salad, that elevator pitch of the company, whereas you should be really targeting exactly what Kelsey was saying of like, they were kind of everything to everyone. But what I would focus on is like, okay, we solve a CEO's specific pain point in ABC, right? So I think that's just something I would add in a small tweak that I see a common mistake with.
That's a good point. And let's spend a couple of minutes actually working and talking about the tools, right? And the places. For example, you mentioned like sending emails, but if you can share what exactly tools you use, right? For example, do you use like Facebook, right? Do you use LinkedIn? Is it helpful or not? And you mentioned a couple of times as well the events, right? What kind of events? So I think some people will find it interesting and helpful as well.
I could start because we don't use a ton, but so we spent basically no money on a CRM. Early days, we're now just got our CRM really kind of it's working for us now, and we're using it in a way that we haven't in 3 years. So yeah, we use HubSpot, love it. MailChimp, you can read a lot from like using different like mail sendouts, who's opening them, where they're clicking. That was something we paid a lot of attention to in the beginning. On LinkedIn, a lot of us have the upgraded version. I don't know what it is, like Sales Navigator or one of the ones in the middle there. Like, it's important to see who's looking at your profile. Like, are they some of your customers? Would it be a great opportunity to reach out, send them a note? So LinkedIn, I'm trying to think, are there any other? I mean, now we're doing definitely more paid spot advertising, so paying for placement of like white papers and different kinds of advertising in different kind of newsletters that are really targeted to where our audience is. But in terms of tech, those are like the three that we use.
Well, we're very data rich these days. I like the content syndication push there. That's nice little, not enough people do it. Most of what you read on the internet was put there by the Kelseys of the world, and the internet's so full of truth that we buy into it, right? And we see enough of a frequency of a headline. It's like, oh, it's very impactful. But frequency is a big word. If you think you're going to put your logo in front of somebody once or bid on that keyword once and get that one click, they're not going to buy, right? There's a familiarity. It takes, some more educated people than me would say that it takes 4 to 7 impressions of your brand before there's even recollection. Before I even know who you are. Fasken, right? Yeah. I've heard it 4 times. Now I can pick it up. It's just not that easy. And we kind of throw these little budgets at, a Google ad and spread it across Canada on a broad match keyword. This is things that small companies should do. That's my tactic that I'll share with everybody. And, get a 12% impression share on that keyword, and I won't geek out and explain what all that means, across 40 million people, right? It's like, who's going to remember you? Like, you got to be in their face, man. You got to, stay present. The same thing we would do with a standard sales engagement is like, I'm going to call them and email them a bunch of times until they understand who I am. Tactically, what I would recommend for almost any company, especially early stage company, you don't have a bunch of cash to play with. You have sophisticated marketers working for you, and you can't outsource it because you have to be authentic and be the founder actually doing the work and pressing the buttons. Just take the smallest amount of money you can, pretend you're like your grandparents and you lived through World War II and you're like hanging on to everything and every dollar is meaningful. And bid on the 5 to 10 keywords that would make you money, like 100% of the time. Like you're going to make money on that, and it's irrefutable. Because one thing that keywords don't lie about is intent. If you're typing that you're using your big thumbs on a touch screen to type that thing in, there's no disputing that, right? It's like that person woke up today and wanted that thing. That's not, throwing it out there on Instagram and hoping it sticks to somebody. It's like, no, they're telling you what you need. All you need to do is do sales after that, right? But you don't have the cash to spread it out that much. You can't just be like, oh, geographically, I think anybody in North America would buy my thing, so I'm going to spend $500 this month across North America. It's a terrible idea. Spend $500 in like this postal code and buy a bus bench and bid the hell out of Google so you show up every single time somebody searched for those 5 words and own that market. Like, just because we have a digital universe today doesn't mean we should behave like we have a digital universe. Like, I still need to build awareness with like this little microcosm of people that might want my thing. And I have to stay in front of them. I have to be ever present. And pretty soon you gain enough traction there. Then everybody in that postal code thinks you're like the biggest company in the world, right? Because, I see them all the time. I know their logo, right? So economy, just really economize what you're doing and then track the data like crazy.
Yeah, I would say if you're early in your journey, you don't need to go out and spend a ton of money on tools. I think LinkedIn Sales Nav is extremely powerful because you can just search through organizations, find the right person. The search capabilities for Sales Nav compared to just normal LinkedIn is just insane. You can build lists, everything. It's really interesting. Another tool I like, it's relatively inexpensive, and you can actually use the free version pretty good, and it plugs into LinkedIn Sales Nav. It's Apollo. So you can basically pull anyone's email. You can send sequences and emails through it. It's a bit of a CRM as well. So you can use the free functionality pretty well. Then I think if you're paying, it's pretty reasonable. You have to go double check on that. And then you just kind of Apollo. And yeah, I think just upgrade as you go. Like Kelsey said, they just kind of recently did HubSpot. Just upgrade when you actually need it, when that pain point is hit. But I think another point that Kelsey brought up, especially on the B2B side, is you really want to track those metrics, right? So if you're just sending emails from your Gmail or your Outlook account, you're not seeing if people are opening it. You're not seeing if they're clicking links in the emails, so you have nothing to go off. You're just a piece of paper in the wind or whatever. So I think you want to have a platform like Apollo or HubSpot where you can actually track open rate, click-through rate. Maybe they're not even opening your email, so you got to change your strategy, right? Maybe you're going to pick up the phone, message them on LinkedIn. Maybe you're going to just go down to their office if they're downtown Calgary. I think that's really important from a tool standpoint, and it's more about the tracking. Then I think depending on what method you're using, I usually look at like email, phone call, LinkedIn, and then what I would call like in person. So that could be like events, trying to meet people in person. I think it's like the Ben Horowitz, like the Andreessen Horowitz founder. He said there's no silver bullet. There's just a bunch of lead bullets. So you're really going to be doing a lot of different things. So you can't, if you have someone who's like, email doesn't work, LinkedIn doesn't work, cold calling doesn't work, they're just not doing it the right way, or it's just not working all the time. So I think you need to have a strong process for each of those 4 buckets of outreach. And again, they're going to work differently for different, personas, different ICPs, but you need to have a decent strategy with all those buckets.
Sounds great. So we're going to be switching to Q&A session very soon. So start thinking about the questions that you have specifically related to your business. You already talked a lot about, budget and trying to save, right? Because when you're starting out, right, definitely you don't have a lot of budget to spend. But let's just reinforce that message, what you should spend money on and what you shouldn't spend money on when you start.
I can do that. I can tell you all all the things we spent money on that we shouldn't have spent money on after our first raise of capital. I think especially in emerging tech ecosystems, you guys are going to get poached all the time. People are going to be knocking on your door. You need PR, you need a marketing agency, you need someone to redo your website, you need someone to do your logo. Be very careful. A lot of that money we spent to do some of those things is just like gone. You know, we redid it. As soon as we figured out our messaging, we're like, we can do that better ourselves. We don't need to pay for it. Just be very careful because that exists. And again, like if you can't, as a founder, get to some level on your own already, you can't pay someone to do it and help you do it. So that's a big one. And just watching those traps. And then, you know, related to what you were saying. So like, you know, maybe investing in SEO. When you're doing these things, like I totally agree with that. Run concentrated tests, you know, so say, hey, we're going to spend $1,000 on this area and track it. Like track how many leads that led to, what was the close rate, you know, what was the revenue, like track these tests and ultimately double down on the ones that are working faster and more successfully. And I think just like, because it's easy to, you know, to your point, you were kind of saying like, if you're not tracking these things, it's easy for your money to just like fly out the window and then you're like, wait, what am I actually doing and what's effective? So be really like methodical about how much money you're spending on these things.
Agreed. Yeah. Different strokes for different folks, right? Like one person's trash is another's treasure, and a tactic that maybe doesn't work for me. If your customer is driving to Canmore every morning, maybe that big fat billboard on the way makes a ton of sense. So it's not. Yeah. See why I saw the logo. I picked up on that. I have some experience there. It's radically different depending on who your person is and how they lived their lives and where their stressors are and their point of pain. Really think through, you know, what we call channel strategy, right? Where am I most likely to intersect with them and catch them at the right time? And there's no silver bullet. There's not this one thing that's going to consistently make everybody in the room a bunch of money. A good budgeting strategy really is to place your money appropriately. And I agree wholeheartedly with early stage companies. You just got to like keep it skinny, right? Like don't get talked in. There's a lot of predatory people out there in the industry that I work in who are very effective at getting your money. And you have to be educated enough in this stuff to be literate and to be dangerous, right? Because when you're not selling, then you're getting stressed out. And then you're looking for answers. And we've all done it, right? We're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure. I don't trust anybody. But I just got this email from this place that says that they can like 20x my blah, blah, blah. And it got me at the right time and it felt pretty damn good. So we're going to find some money to do that thing. You need to know enough, or email Evan and get his advice on that. I'm sure he'll share. Just be really careful when you don't have enough cash to go around. And I don't believe in the concept of return on ad spend. I think maybe we shouldn't go there just yet, but it's a bit of mythology, right? You're never going to be able to measure everything conclusively. Like, yes, we want to make money when we spend money, but really measure interactions. Measure when you get response from people. Selling is harder than that. It takes a long time, especially in B2B or enterprise sales. It's going to take a very long time. And you can't track it back to that billboard necessarily all the time. But be present in front of the people who matter and put your money there and just keep it as tightly wound as you can.
For those 4 to 7 impressions.
That's right. Keep showing up.
Yeah, I think my advice, and it would be more on like, you're just initially starting, like if you're maybe in Kelsey's situation or some other founders in town where you're kind of growing, you're scaling, you've raised some money, I think that's a different kind of conversation, different strategy. But I would say the most important thing just starting, again, is what I was talking about, that inaction, is you need to get out there and talk to customers, right? As much as you can. And you're going to hack it, right? Maybe it's your personal network that you know someone there. Maybe you're just sending cold DMs to people. Maybe you're swinging by like that office and you're just trying to talk to that individual. You're just trying to sneak into an event here or there. I think anything where you feel like you have to spend money to talk to a customer, it's just the wrong approach when you're starting. You don't need to go to conferences. You don't need to hire PR agencies, marketing agencies, all these things. It's like if you, the founder, are not out there, and if you're not excited to just talk to customers and just try and get in front of them, no matter how you can, then it's really hard to kind of I think make it to that next stage. So yeah, if there's any service provider or anything you're doing where it's like it costs money to get connected with customers, just cut that out and just try and go direct. It'll be hard, but like that's how I would do it.
Perfect. All right, so let's open up now. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. I will be running with the microphone to make sure that we can hear you. Who would be the first one? Greg, I know that you always have questions. Thanks.
So, Evan, it sounds like you're a LinkedIn expert, and I have a few questions about that. So, most businesses that the founders that I know, if you add me and then send me a message, I just delete you. So, I'm wondering, is there a specific demographic that you find responds better to that LinkedIn messages, and is there a specific strategy to doing that?
I think it's just about like what your profile looks like. As shallow as that sounds, I think it's what's your work experience? Like, how are you portraying like the jobs that you've been at? What's like your header? Is it just like, I'm an innovator, whatever is your header? You should be more clear, right? Like, I'm the founder, I'm the CEO of this company. I think that's a little bit more engaging. So I think just looking how your profile looks. I actually talked to a LinkedIn Sales Navigator rep about this, and they actually said that requests with a message get declined more than just sending a request without a message, which I found really interesting. And that was from a LinkedIn Sales Navigator rep. But yeah, I'd say it's like it's kind of like that law of attraction, right? If your profile is attractive enough for that industry, like maybe you've worked at some companies in that ICP, now you're a founder in that space. And I do agree, you got to connect with the right people. But yeah, I wouldn't say, again, there's no silver bullet there, but I think having like a really clear profile and just like adding the right people at the right time. And I think LinkedIn is super effective. I think posting like content on there as well. I think you just got to post regularly. Again, you don't need a PR agency, a marketing agency, people putting all this content together. Maybe it's just like struggles you're having with the business and you're like finding other founders that are kind of like coming together from that. So it's not always like directly getting in front of your customers, but I think just building kind of like a presence around your LinkedIn is super important.
Consistency.
Yes.
Please, I didn't have anything cerebral to add to that. This guy.
All right.
I'm sales 101. That's my pay grade.
Let's go with them.
No.
I'm a big fan of LinkedIn as well, so I think everyone should use it because it's just big, and there are lots of people who actually related to your business, right? But let's go with the second question.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments around LinkedIn. I too was surprised with what the Sales Navigator person told you. Do you have any sense as to whether an email might be a better approach? Have you had more success? Because I'm finding LinkedIn, I'm not getting that much responses.
Yeah, I think you can't ever put something just kind of in a silo, right? I think you got to look at it from a bigger picture. So it's like how your profile is maybe perceived by the person you're connecting with. I think it's also if they're seeing emails from you, if they're getting phone calls from you. Like again, it's that kind of lead bullet strategy there. So yeah, I would say again, like if LinkedIn's not working for you, like maybe shifting strategy, but you should be doing one of those 4 buckets, right? Phone call, email, LinkedIn, and in person. I know in person's harder. Maybe if you're selling into a market that's not in Calgary, but if you are starting in Calgary, that's helpful. But yeah, again, I wouldn't have like a specific advice for your case, but I would say just not doing one of those things. But
Thank you. The only other thing I would add on like cold, I did a lot of cold emailing to investors when we were fundraising, more so in the US. I mean, I think ultimately warm referral is always the best. And I think like, if you're trying to sell into a company, ask for a referral from someone you know that works at that company. But when you do that, and I think this is the most important part, write the email, like basically write the email for the introduction and say, hey, John, could you, put me in touch with this person in the department? Would really appreciate it. I've taken the liberty of drafting the email for you, so all you have to do is hit send. Investors love that too, by the way. So make their lives just easy. So warm referral is big. And then if you are doing cold outbound, which I think should be like one of the last things you try, but if you are having to go to warm out, I should say that's how I use LinkedIn in fundraising, like absolutely stalked investors' profiles and then figured out our mutual connections and then begged for an introduction from the mutual connection. You have to be shameless. But yeah, on cold outbound, if you're doing it, try to make some sort of personalization in the email. I saw that you played hockey growing up. I saw that you graduated from the University of Saskatchewan. Those are things that I would, try to relate to people on a human level, and it'll jolt their system because it looks different from the hundreds of emails they're getting that are just like cold template, hit send. And it does help. I did have an investor out of New York tell me once, he's like, I get so many outbound emails, but he's like, I took your email. He's like, I took yours because you really personalized it to me. So I was proud of that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Questions here?
Hi, yeah. This might be like the next step, but I'm just wondering if you could talk about pricing strategies. I noticed that you mentioned annual recurring revenue. How do you get to that point? What does that look like? How do you find the right model for your business?
So by the way, I think that I'm going to be on the next panel, but then our head of growth is going to be on the third panel, which is all about enterprise selling. And this is something like Lindsay on our team is working a lot on right now. But early stages, one thing I would say for us is I remember like early days when we started to price things, I was terrified that like when I put a price out, we weren't going to be able to move it. It was going to set a benchmark. And that is true in a way. I mean, if you sell a contract to a customer, you got to think about what you actually want them to pay and what's the value of it, because you can only go up so much year over year. But I remember thinking like, I got to get this right. And it's paralyzed us a little bit. I think very early days, it's okay to like set some sort of like foundation, and you can say like, we're doing something just like basically at cost. If you're doing a pilot, be like, we're doing this at cost, setting yourself up for increasing that over time. But also just like your pricing is going to be all over the place, I think, from 0 to $1 million. And it is different for all of our customers. Shh, don't tell our customers. But that's okay, and it's ultimately like a conversation. Again, depending on your business, I don't need to publish all my prices on my website, and so that's B2B, and everything comes down to a negotiation at the end. But I would say just like don't get paralyzed by setting those numbers up front.
It's super complicated, but in every industry and vertical is radically different. But there's really only two levers, right? When you just simplify it and dumb it down. Competition obviously is a factor in everything that we sell, and I can't sell Evan's fleece at twice as much as a company that has the exact same fleece, assuming I just have the same stuff, right? Yeah. But it's got that logo, and that's the other factor is belief, right? Just belief. It's not better, but I think it's better, and I have a fear of missing out. That's good brand. It's it's great brand and positioning, and knowing that audience really well. We'll just do the dumbest things to buy things that don't have that value, but it's meaningful to us, right? And that's what matters. It's impossible to say what your platform should be worth, right? I mean, what's its value? I mean, you can cost it all in and say we're going to mark it up 125%, but in reality, it's what the market's going to pay, right? So the market is going to pay. There's no laws and rules around how much money you can make for any particular thing. It's just like, was there a bunch of that thing already out there and I'm competing directly against it? Then I probably need to moderate a little bit to make sure I'm on point somehow, or I've just got something super rad and everybody's got a fear of missing out. So I can almost charge whatever I want.
There's a really good book called Monetizing Innovation. You can either buy it or just find a free PDF of it online. I found that was a pretty enlightening book, would talk about pricing. I would say don't beat yourself up about it. When I was at Benevity, I was there, we were already at 800 people. I was 10 years in and we were still changing the pricing. So your pricing is always going to be moving. It's a moving target depending the customer segment. So I would say don't beat yourself up about it. I think, yes, looking at competitors, like if you were going to go launch, what would be a good example? Like a Salesforce competitor tomorrow, Salesforce has this many features and costs this much. Ours has this many features, so there should be some kind of relation there with like the value. I think an interesting one too, and it's more of a B2B situation. It wouldn't really work on the consumer side, but it's like kind of the expected value creation. So let's say you had a product that was maybe, I don't want to say replacing a role, but maybe enhancing a role, and maybe that role maybe their salary was like $100K a year, and you made them 20% more efficient. Like you can maybe base your pricing off of that, of the value creation or savings. Again, that's just kind of a starting point. The pricing's really going to get refined as you talk to more and more customers. I think, again, that's a thing to do. But again, you're probably going to undercharge the first few times, and but the nice thing is you can increase prices.
Great.
One quick learning for us has been, and this is still true today, if your customers aren't complaining about your pricing and pushing back eventually, you're probably not charging enough.
Great. We have a couple of more questions. I have a quick one follow-up on this one. What's the best strategy? Should we put the prices on the website or we keep it and let people wonder? So what do you think about that?
Done it both, have no idea.
Age-old debate, yeah, that's tricky. Either way, I've been in both scenarios for sure. Probably no right answer, just experimentation. A/B test the landing page. Run them both, send traffic to both, manipulate people's minds, figure it out.
Yeah, I think the jury's out on this. I talked to lots of different people and it's all over the place. Some people are saying, yeah, pricing on the page. Some say don't do it. I think, again, if you're having lots of conversations with your customer, you'll know if that's a frustration, right? Like maybe, like a tool like, let's say Figma or Adobe or something like that. If you don't have the pricing, you're probably going to piss people off because it's just a very simple tool where you can make an account and log in and you're fine. Okay, I'll pay some money, like Slack or whatever. But yeah, if it's kind of like a more complicated B2B SaaS and you got to integrate things and there's different, it's hard to get that, then maybe leave pricing off or maybe give a range. But yeah, again, it depends on who you're selling to. I think if you're more on that kind of Figma product-led growth side of things, I would have pricing on there because your competitors probably do. But if there's lots of integrations and pricing's wildly all over the place, I would just say inquire on the page.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for sharing your insights thus far. I have a question about what you might recommend or any tips or strategies for a business that is doing founder-led sales, but also founder-led marketing and ops and customer service, and is trying to navigate that space between scaling, but trying to handle day-to-day operations as well. Is there anything that you would recommend automating that might free up some of the energy to do that more one-on-one direct sales?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I was doing all of that, for sure. We've just brought in, or now have someone on the team who's running more of the ops side. So that's just like founder life. But it does depend on your business, how you want to capitalize your company. Do you want to raise venture capital? Yeah, okay. Then I would focus on sales. Like, put sales first always. And that could be controversial, but that's my opinion. That's what worked for us. It's hard to really refute, when you're in a room with an investor and they're telling you your product doesn't work or there's no demand and they're arguing with you about the market size, the best way to solve that is to be like, yep, well, I have a better answer, and it's, we're selling and here's been our growth. So I think like everything is stage dependent again, but like investors care about sales and they care about your growth and they want to see potential. And so if that's what you're doing already on founder time, and you're keeping the business going in the background, some of those things can let go of, like I said, we paid very little attention to our website. We did very little marketing, knowing that that's like not what I wanted to put out in the world, but recognizing there are compromises at that stage, right? In terms of like leading a team and running some of like the back house and ops side, I mean, you got to just be like really open and transparent with your team. Like we've always been like, hey, we're going to do our best to do performance reviews, but that stuff will come later. And that's what you're signing up for in a startup, right? It's just, don't put the pressure on yourself, I think, to have all those things perfectly done, and just focus on the thing that's going to get you to that next level.
Well, to piggyback, I mean, the art of prioritization, you are doing everything. Most of the people in this room have been there in some capacity before. You need an operating system for you. I know that sounds so like, I got to be a bigger company to do that. It's like, nope. You got to start on January the 1st and have like your meeting cadence, and you need to know like, what are we prioritizing? What are my pillars for this year? What am I focused on? And what am I actioning every single day? Knowing that you're not getting to it all. Like, you're just not. So something has to give. My website sucks too, Kelsey, so don't feel bad. I don't prioritize it. It doesn't, should it be better? Yeah, it should be better. I hate it. I can't even look at it. It burns my eyes. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't make me any money at the end of the day, right? It's there. It exists. And people refer me. So, like, what does it matter at the end of the day? So don't be chasing things that aren't going to contribute directly to that core objective, whatever that is. And I'd also say, think equity, not cash flow all the time. Like, your business is actually one of your most important, if not the most important piece of equity that you own. And we get too lured away to that. It's like, well, I got to generate cash flow. Yes, you need to pay the bills. You need enough cash to do that. But if you stop thinking about what am I doing today that's growing the equity of this vehicle, and become obsessed with just win one more customer just because, that can change your decision making quite a bit, right? When you're like, no, I got to be focused on like long game. I'm building something over time here, and keeping the lights on at the same time.
I would echo what Kelsey said, and again, I'm coming from a place of being at Fasken, where most of our clients are raising venture, and always focusing on revenue. Revenue solves all problems. It might sound a bit simplistic, but that's kind of how it is. But yeah, Kelsey has great examples there, but I would say if you are going the venture track, like lots of our clients, really just focusing on that revenue. And when you got great revenue numbers, you can raise money a lot easier, a lot faster, and help with those kind of team and scaling problems. But again, that's more focus on the clients that we work with.
Thank you.
To continue on investor tactics, I was kind of curious, you said when you write the email for the other person to send, I was wondering, have you tried just writing so-and-so recommended, I talked to you, or highly recommended, or anything? Because I've had a pretty good response rate with that. And so I was wondering, do you know one's better than the other?
No, I think that works too. I just think, if I have a relationship with an investor and we already have a relationship and now I'm bringing you something, I mean, that's my reputation too on the line. So an investor looks at that, and I've talked to investors. I have a really close friend who is an advisor. She said she will always take warm introductions because it's the other person putting their name behind that person. So it's harder to get a warm referral because who knows if so-and-so would have actually done that for you. But I think both can be effective. I just think like warm referrals maybe a bit more, but.
I think it's relevant because if you're raising money, you're selling equity in your company, so it's still sales in that sense of the word. But I would say, warm referrals are key, and those can come from a lot of places, right? Like, yeah, it's your network. Us at Fasken, I'm not trying to plug Fasken, but if you're a client of ours, we have great relationships with all the VCs here in Canada, different industries. So, leverage people that are out there, like service providers, like, hey, KPMG, you want my work? Introduce me to 5 investors, right? Like, I think there's leverage points you can do there. I think too is like reaching out to relevant investors, right? Like a lot of my investor friends just get their inboxes full of just completely random businesses that have nothing to do. Like there'll be like a Series A fund and they're getting like pre-seed deals in their inbox, right? They're just instantly deleting those. So I think it's find relevant investors to what your stage, your sector, your geography, like just look at their page for 5 minutes. It doesn't take a long time to do that. And I would say too is like a lot of people will try and go directly to the partner all the time. I think there is a playbook. It's just like sales, right? Like you're not going to go to the CEO every time you're trying to reach out. So talk to the analysts. The analysts are probably out at different events around town. Get to know them. They get to know you. Again, it's if you don't have the warm referrals through your network, you kind of got to do that yourself and just try and find where these VCs are hanging out. And they're mostly at different tech events in town.
I'll just add one more thing on that. With founder intros, like I get asked that a lot now, and I think there's nothing more irritating than someone you've never met DMing you and saying, "Can you introduce me?" And it's like, I don't even know you. So I'm not going to do that. And I think like ultimately, like to your point, get out to events. Be part of this amazing burgeoning ecosystem that I think really doesn't exist in a lot of other places in the world. And, USEED has a ton of events, Innovate Calgary, Platform. I mean, we know them all, right? Get out, make friends, find awesome founder communities, and be genuine. So if you're asking for a referral from someone, ask them back, what can I do for you? Is there anyone in my LinkedIn that I could introduce you to? That's probably the simplest way.
Yeah. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for this beautiful event. My name is Dmitry. I would like to ask not about the sales, but about the sales consecutives. For example, you have 2 clients and everything is good, and you start small. For example, like you, 3.5 years ago, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. But then suddenly it was good. They are satisfied, and you have 16 of your clients, and you're not ready. So what is the tool set? Should I be in the point A? And I know that I won't be in the point B in a certain amount of time. Should I already act like a big company? For example, this tool of HubSpot, yeah? So should we manage the tasks inside our small team as it already the team of 200 people, for example? What is the tool set for beginner in the start? Thank you.
Are you B2B SaaS?
Excuse me?
Are you a B2B?
No, we are media.
Media.
Media, yeah.
Okay. Well, so again, I made this comment earlier, but for me, it would all come back to like your annual contract value, how many leads, like look at the numbers, how many leads do you have to drive, how many conversations do you have to drive to close a sale, from start to finish, and that's ultimately going to kind of guide you. So we, again, like just an example, if we have 20 clients, like I could do all the selling myself. I just needed to find 20 good conversations in a quarter, whatever it was. That's now not manageable for me because the growth that we have to hit, we have to talk to 400. So now we need a sales tool to track and manage all of that. So I think it can be a little bit like chicken and egg. Which one should you invest in first? But I think ultimately like a good kind of, tool or like a point of reference that I use is just like if people are burning at both ends, if things are getting dropped, if things are, kind of falling through the cracks, time to figure out how to either supplement that with technology or hire some additional support.
Spreadsheets, dude. That's your entry level. Then my Google Sheets, whatever, Excel, everything on spreadsheets. Like every piece of software that we use when you get big is just some kind of manipulation of spreadsheets, right? Databases, that's what they are. Just that's you and that's where you're at. And don't get tricked. Like these are Jedi mind tricks, right? And they're like, oh, you need HubSpot, you need all this stuff. You won't use it. You don't. If the pain is not so great that you're like dying and losing sales and like, whoa, the world is on fire, we can't do this anymore, then you just don't need the software. don't adopt software prematurely. It's a moving target, and who knows what you're going to need in the future. There'll probably be something better that comes along anyway, right? You stick to like super, oh man, the amount of times I see people bring in software they don't need at such capital costs. And you got all these poor human beings that are sitting there, I don't even know what we do with the thing, right? I've personally spent tens of thousands of dollars on month on stuff that I didn't know why we had it, right? So super simple operating system, do as much as you can in spreadsheets and stuff. And then, yeah, when you're exploding, then you look for a solution for it.
Yeah, I think just G Suite early on, just good communication tools, good tools that keep everyone on the same page. Because I think a lot of people, when they're buying a software, they just look at the price, but you got to think about, especially if you have some team members, you got to train everyone. You got to get everyone to use it. There's a learning curve to that. Maybe there's like a drop in productivity because people are also learning the new tool while also have to doing their job. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. It's not always just the price you're paying for the software. There's a lot of other things that go into it.
So, for example, we have the 16 clients, and we are overloaded working with it, and we have to learn how to work this HubSpot stuff, for example, being already overloading with our new clients. So, I understand that it would be a lot of resistance for your employees. Oh, why we have to do something new? This spreadsheet is awesome. I learned for 5 years how it works, and now I can. And now you give me HubSpot. I have 16 clients in a line, and I have to spend 15 days to learn all the interface and how it works. So maybe it's better to work. It could be weird, for example, the team of 3, but they deliver the task through the system already, sitting just in one space. But just having these exercises already being prepared to the growth. Or anyway, spreadsheets is your type of piece of advice.
Just to clarify, so your team is kind of like pushing back on using HubSpot, or just they just don't want to use it, or?
We don't use HubSpot. I'm actually not from Canada, so that's why it's something new for me as a CRM system and the task manager is HubSpot.
I would just say, like, if it's working and it's not broken, then just keep doing it, right? Like, again, you don't need to have that pressure of like, you know, if you're talking to other founder friends, we use this tool and we use that tool and we use that. Again, I think it's what Kelsey was saying and David was saying. If it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. Don't push like tools on people because, like, again, it's the cost, productivity drop. If everything's just operating, yes, maybe there's a lot of manual hours and time, but it's working. I would do that, and you don't pull the trigger on something until it actually is going to like really help you.
Great. And we have the last question over here, and then we switch to networking session and connecting.
Thank you. Hi there. I want to pick up on something that Evan said. So when you said, don't always try and sell into the CEO, try and figure out your strategy around that. We sell to surgeons, so they're not on LinkedIn typically. Any quick tips for how to build that influencer campaign so that you can get at the CEO or the surgeon or whomever?
That's a good question. So like selling into an industry that's not super active on LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question.
I mean, I don't know what your product is, but like getting the champions within the clinics potentially. So trying to get to them first, and I don't know if they can use the product, but.
How do you build the campaign around getting at the champions or within the C-suite, the people that are around the C-suite that can kind of influence the purchase up if you're not always going after the person that's signing the check?
Yeah, so you got to figure out where those people go and what they do, and if not, I would literally go knock on their doors because you probably know, and you can look in the phone book where all these clinics are, and if it's software or whatever it is, be like, can you try this? Or picking up the phone, getting them to try it, and I think that would be one strategy I would be deploying.
Golf tournaments. You know this, Margaret. Surgeons hang out at golf tournaments. That's why everybody in the farm industry is just having golf tournaments all the time, because that's how they can get them there. And they get a little timeshare, and it's what the Greeks call fakilaki. It's a little, I'll slide you a little bit of love, and we'll do that for a couple of years. You come to my golf tournament, you get to hang out with like Steph Curry and stuff like that, and then you buy the thing, right? That's how the healthcare industry works. Thank you. I do what I can. Thank you.
I guess I would just use an example from my background. So at Neo, early days, we were selling into a lot of, could be like small business owners or whatever that may be. And we were doing corporate, but there was a different strategy, right? So we did a lot of like small business owners associations and stuff like that. Like, again, it's like, okay, so these people aren't on LinkedIn, but they are meeting somewhere, right? Like, is there like a surgeon doctor meetup, or I don't know, is there a board just for Calgary? So again, like those are much harder things to do. You kind of got to get boots on the ground and like actually actively talk to people. Or I would just like look at maybe like there's an interesting group in town called Halo Health. So they're like a angel syndicate for different surgeons and doctors in town, and like it's like an angel platform for investing. But just approaching them, right? And hey, we have something that's actually good. I think they have 200-300 members in Calgary. So yes, that's not like, it's kind of indirect. They're meeting up for investment, but that is where a group is hanging out, and you can talk to that team and see if there's something there.
Or you cut a collab with somebody that's servicing it, like Bright Squid over here, right? Go talk to Rohit or something. Like, they got a bunch of them. Somebody has a database that's loaded up with them, and a little bit of yours, a little bit of theirs, and you compare notes and find something that's like a nice little value add for them, like a golf tournament. But you spend all your time in Scottsdale, so that's rad. Right?
Awesome. I think we covered a lot. So please join me in welcoming and thanking our speakers for sharing experiences, tips, pieces of advice. So we have another 5 minutes. It's going to be a networking session for you to connect, to talk. Please reach out to them. I think they will stay for another few minutes definitely here before they run away. And just make sure you also grab, we still have sandwiches and drinks over there. Thank you so much.